since 1991. Birds and people are living together in seemingly perfect harmony. Until one day, a young man catches fire. This is Phoenix.
You've been knocked down and got up again. In a corner, you're surrounded, no defenders. Whoa, you've hid your fury and kept it in. But it's time now, you ignite and turn to embers. Like a phoenix, you burst in a fire burst. A thirst and desire, you transform right up in a flash. You spread your wings and rise from the ashes. Phoenix, you burst in a fire burst. A thirst and desire, you transform right up in a flash. You spread your wings to rise from the ashes.
Electric Boogaloo.
You see the truth behind the veil, and you know that they're just looking for attention. Oh, you don't let the ruthlessness prevail. Oh, it's time now, light your fires for ascension. Like a phoenix, you burst in a fire burst. A thirst and desire, you transform right up in a flash. You spread your wings and rise from the ashes. Phoenix, you burst in a fire burst. A thirst and desire, you transform right up in a flash. You spread your wings to rise from the ashes.
All right. How's everybody doing tonight? Wanted to join the cool kids club by wearing shades in the day and put my hat on. My name is 12 Gauge. And welcome to my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. I focus on true crime and I focus on true crime understandings. Mostly I've been focusing earlier on in my channel about the Idaho 4 case. And if you haven't seen any of my older videos, you might check it out. I also have a new channel. It's called 12 Gauge Addictions. So you might check that out as well if you're into the recovery mindset or if you're into wanting to just get some spiritual awareness and trying to gain understanding of that avenue. Anyways, tonight I wanted to start off by discussing some of the difference between exactly what happens when you owe a drug debt. And here is the first video. Hold on a second. I hope everybody's doing okay. It was a long week. And put out a video earlier that, documented some cool stuff. Actually, I put out 2 videos today. One on my other channel and one on the True Crime channel. I made a decision today that hopefully will direct my mentality in a different direction than I've allowed it to be going. But hopefully things change for the better because I've tried to address my own behaviors on certain things. But I'll explain that later. Here we go.
A woman is accused of holding another woman hostage and beating her over a drug debt. Jessica Whitaker is charged with felonious assault and abduction. Police say they found the victim yesterday at Whitaker's apartment on Jefferson Avenue. She'd been hit several times in the head with a mallet and had marks on her neck from being choked with electrical cords. A friend of the victim told police she was being held hostage because of a drug debt that ranged between $3,500 and $4,000. Whitaker told police that someone else beat the victim.
Okay, that's one of them that I wanted to show. Let me go ahead and show another one.
On Saturday night, 29-year-old Roger Banner was hanging out here by the rail along the canal with his girlfriend when three persons allegedly approached them, and one man fired multiple shots, which struck Banner in the head. He died instantly. Police were called to the scene at around 9:30.
Police were called to West Canal, Belize City, that is near public supermarket. Upon arrival, police observed the lifeless body of one Roger William Banner, who was lying on the street with what appeared to be multiple gunshot wounds to the head and body area. He was transported to the KHMH and was pronounced dead on arrival. Police investigation into that matter so far had led us to three persons of interest who are currently in our custody, and we believe that the motive for that murder was drug-related.
Banner died on the streets where he had lived all of his adult life except for some time in prison. This picture of him as a young boy is the only one his mother Tomasa has, since he left her home 11 years ago and never looked back. Still, she grieves for the son she remembers.
I'm so sorry that I heard the news on Saturday night. It happened that they shoot my son, but I don't know why. But right now, I am sympathize for him because he left my place 11 years ago. From that since never did come back again. He was staying in Roaring Creek for a while, and after that, something must happen, and he went to prison. And then I hear again, come out again, and then from that, they start to travel about his life. And I hear that when he come out again last 5 months ago, he went to Belize, and from that time now, it happened that they killed him Saturday.
Police believe that Banner's murder was orchestrated by a Belize City figure to whom he owed money for drugs.
So let's break this down a little bit. Since we're talking about drug debt, the reason that I wanted to talk about this today is because it's interesting to me whenever individuals claim about drug hits or certain things like that, and by no means am I trying to jump in the ring about other creators. I'm talking about my own stuff here. But I've cleared this up before, but I thought I'd do it again. When it comes to drug hits, most drug hits are done with weapons, such as a firearm. And most are either done by drive-by, by kidnapping, torturing, and even eventually killing. And I know that this goes with all. It's not just like, okay, universally, some use knives, some use this, some use that. Even with the hardcore Latin cartels, they tend to what they call giso, which is they put somebody in acid, they might cut them up, they might do all kinds of different things because they have defaulted on as the drug dealers or the kingpins view as a front. You know, whether it be money, whether it be stealing drugs, whether it be skimming from the top, anything like that. So when it comes to drug hits, very seldom are they done in a house. Very seldom are knives used. Most of the time, it's to send a message to other people that if you owe a debt, you're going to get dealt with. And this is what's going to happen to you. As far as their families being hit, I wouldn't I wouldn't say that that is part of it. I've never heard that happened, but we can definitely explore it tonight.
Drugs.
From our investigation, there were 3 persons together, but only one of them was armed with a firearm. Nonetheless, if our investigation or our evidence points us to all 3 persons, based on the doctrine of joint enterprise, we believe that we'll be able to charge all 3 with his murder. We believe that he was indebted to somebody for some drugs, and that person was the one who put the hit on him. So that's what our investigation is revealing at this time.
It's not a surprising end for the man who lived by his own rules. His family believes that he was impacted by the murder of his father, Peter Banner, in 1997. Peter Banner was gunned down at his home and was found by 9-year-old Roger.
Since my stepfather died, his relationship began with friends. He got into friends, and friends tell him a lot of things, so he joined them. And from since he went on his own, and nobody knew where he went. We try talk to him to come out of that situation that he is in, but he doesn't want to listen to nobody, so he do his own thing. And from since when he gone, we didn't have no kind of close relationship, but anywhere that he see me, he always talk to me, and I always try to encourage him to come out of that situation, because one of these days his life will end up. But he said he already used to it, and anything could happen to him, and it don't really matter. It hurts me because he's my son, he's my blood. What happened, but only God will help him always.
Mike Rodon for News 5.
Okay. So there's not very many people in here tonight. So what do you think about that theory, Aquarius? Do you think that people honestly have their families attacked due to a drug debt? Have you ever heard of such a thing? Do you want to come up on panel and chill with me? Let me send you the invite. Because it's just you and I. Let's come up on panel until people come in here, I guess. You've been up here before, so you're more than welcome to come up here. I wouldn't think so either. I wouldn't think that individuals would necessarily get situations like that. Hey, Rondi. Let me see if I can find. You're still welcome to come up. I wish Rondi would get her phone working. That way she could come up and we could all have like a mod Friday. That way we wouldn't be copying anybody's anybody's stuff, it would be a mod Friday. Da, 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 da. Now I got that song in my head. I just was thinking about that, and it really bothers me whenever people go down avenues that could potentially harm other people because of the maliciousness of it all. I did get a bit of information just now that I want to address as well here in a little bit. I'm going to play my own video so I don't get copyrighted. I've already done this before, but I want to go ahead and use my own stuff. Surprise, surprise, I found my own stuff. I don't know how to do a call in. I wish I did. I mean, that would be awesome. Come on up, Aquarius. We'll get Rondi up here eventually. Okay, this is the thing about gangs is I want y'all to know this, okay? Is most gangs follow the same MO. That means that most of them have the same method of operation. So whenever they're dealing with people that owe debts or higher level dealers that they need to deal with, especially this cartel right here. Let me play this. You're a cartel member and you actually know different and you know what happened in the house. This is my take on it. This is my opinion. So let's see exactly how it operates.
In July 2011, all of Mexico stood still as they watched a video of cartel workers Felix Gomez Garcia and his uncle Barnabas Gomez getting dismembered with a chainsaw. Cartels are known for their extreme violence, from getting beaten to death to being burnt alive. Here are some of the most brutal cartel execution methods. El Guiso, the stew. January 22nd, 2009, one of the most wanted criminals in Mexico, Santiago Meza Lopez, was captured by the Mexican army in the Baja Seasons neighborhood of Tijuana, in a house where he had been partying too much for several days, commonly known as El Pozolero, which means the pozole maker. He was known for being a special cleanup agent for cartels, and he's believed to have stirred and dissolved over 300 bodies in acid at his Ensenada ranch about 70 miles south of the border. He gained notoriety for being among the first to pioneer the El Guiso method. El Guiso basically means the soup, and basically you put a person into a large oil drum.
If you've never had guiso, you don't know what you're missing out on. It's made with different, there's another variation called carne asada, and it's basically stew meat that's kind of boiled to kind of tenderize it. Then you add some spices and you add some other stuff. You eat it in a tortilla with some cheese. Boy, that stuff goes hard in the paint. But this is a different type of guiso. Let's watch.
And then you fill it.
I mean, guiso meat is really delicious, but I wouldn't believe that putting people in a canister and boiling them until they burn or boiled down to nothing would be that good to eat. You know what I mean?
But with gasoline or acid before setting it on fire to create a furnace used to burn victims, most commonly referred to as making guiso or stew. The originator of this technique remains unknown, but a few Mexican cartels have become infamous for using this preferred execution method. To prepare this deadly concoction, you fill a huge barrel with water and then concentrated sulfuric acid, causing it to boil and spit dangerously hot liquid. Once it's ready, victims will be dunked in while they're still breathing. And this insane method of torture would put these victims through excruciating pain, ultimately leading them to a slow death.
Dumped in while they're still breathing. Can you imagine being thrown in a large canister and put sulfuric acid on you?
Born to poor parents in mid-April 1964 in Sinaloa, Mexico, Santiago Meza Lopez struggled with poverty from a very young age. At 13, he would work construction until the 90s, where he moved to Tijuana in search of a better life, until his sister was raped by members of a criminal organization. Seeking revenge, Lopez joined the Tijuana cartel through his childhood friend, El Teo. And as time went on, Santiago eventually climbed the ranks, and a few years later, his efforts finally caught the attention of the boss, Efrain Perez. One fateful day, Perez entrusted him with the grim task of disposing bodies, offering him a weekly payment of $600. And that's where it all began. He would liquefy his victims in a very effective and unique style. He would dunk the cadavers in a tub filled with acid and sodium hydroxide while stirring the...
Yeah, that is just some evil stuff right there. So when people start talking about, the cartels and the way that they do their methods, it makes me wonder, how do they speculate that this is the direction in which certain crimes were done? You know what I'm saying? Because that's the first thing that they put out there is cartel hit, cartel hit. It was an Aryan brother hit. It was this, it was that, it was this, it was that. But you're going to see the different variations in what they use in order to carry out a hit. And one thing that people don't really understand, if you're going to carry out one of these things, nobody's going to know about it. It's not going to be something that, the police are not going to have any identification of how it happened. It's not going to be done due to snitching. It's going to be done due to owing money. So if you owe money, and I'm not talking about little bit of money, I'm talking about lots of money, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. That is pretty big money, and that climbs up there. But still, a lot of people are not going to want to get dirty just owing, just because you owe this amount. They might scare you, they might intimidate you, but they're not going to kill you most often.
The bodies. You'd keep this mixture on high heat for at least 8 hours until the body's finally disintegrated. Certain parts of the body don't get dissolved, like teeth or nails, maybe even small pieces of bone, which Santiago would eventually throw into a wasteland, burn them a second time with gasoline, and bury them. Authorities say he'd claimed to stuff over 300 bodies into barrels of lye, then dumping some of the liquefied remains in a pit on a hillside compound in eastern Tijuana. After his arrest, investigators found about 14,000 remains buried in his ranch. The choice of name for this extremely violent execution method begins to make sense, seeing how the torture technique is centered around cooking victims. According to reports, when Santiago was being interrogated, he claimed to have tried to escape from his former boss, Efrain Perez, an ex-member of the Arellano Felix cartel or Tijuana cartel, but none of his attempts were successful. Lopez claimed to have been recruited while working on a farm in 1996, where senior members of the Arellano Felix cartel asked him to.
And you know what? If they're gonna snatch you up, you will never be seen again. There's a lot of individuals that have gone missing that have yet to be found to this day because of certain things like this. It's almost like you're going to be missing. Nobody is going to know where you're at. Because think about a crime. When you're wanting to commit a crime, you're wanting to send a message, yes, but you still don't want it to be tied to you because that's going to bring the heat of people looking around, looking into your crime organization, and possibly being infiltrated by the federal government or the government of Mexico or wherever it is that you have these crime syndicates going on.
Carry out an experiment with water and acid in a barrel. Lopez said he had no choice and he was forcibly recruited as they threatened him with violence to carry out the.
So let's look back on the facts that we do know about the crime. In that 8 hours, do you believe that they were cleaning up barrels of human bodies or not human bodies? There wouldn't have been anything left. But they say they found 4 bodies that were stabbed to death in that house. So if this method was used, that couldn't have been true because there were bodies left behind. So this is one way the cartels do their business. But in fact, we believe that this viciousness that these people impose equals 4 people being stabbed to death. And just because we hear the coroner saying it was a brutal crime, in our mind, we think, oh, cartel, drug hit. Nah.
These acts. Whether or not that's true, no one knows, but the fact remains that he did this for many years until he was finally apprehended. In 2012, he was initially sentenced, ended only 10 years, and was eligible for release in April 2022, which angered a lot of families in Tijuana. However, on February 5th, 2024, his prison sentence was increased by an additional 30 years. The El Guizo method became a favored tool among high-ranking cartel leaders to kill their rivals and traitors. Its gruesome efficiency was unmatched, with victims bound by their hands and feet as to fit in an oil barrel more easily while still conscious. The chilling legacy of this method serves as a stark reminder of the ruthlessness in the world of organized crime. Food for the pets.
They often torture and kill their victims. They have fed some of their victims, dead and alive, to tigers belonging to the Chapitos.
Since the 80s, rare, dangerous, and exotic animals have been used in a way to show off insanely high levels of wealth. But over the years, cartel bosses have adopted another insane tradition. Just like Pablo kept hippopotamuses and other exotic creatures at his private compound, rare and dangerous pets are still a status symbol today for high-ranking members of the Mexican cartel, imitating the infamous Colombian drug lords of the 80s and 90s. It was a means to show off and send threats, as it looked like the more dangerous the cartel was, the more dangerous pets had to be found in their homes. Mexican authorities would.
Oh, did you see that cartel member? He wasn't wielding a knife, he had a gun. Have we heard of any guns being used in this tragedy? Nah, I don't remember hearing so. Do y'all?
Later tell you that these animals weren't just for showing off. Sometimes cartels would throw their unfortunate victims in these enclosed areas with starving apex predators. In the most wicked way, the cartel would have their victims beg for their lives in fear just moments before being torn apart by these.
I mean, can you imagine, like, knowing that you are about, yes, I just got it, that you were about to get thrown to some live ass animals like the hippopotamus or a tiger or a lion because you either snitched on the cartel, were a traitor, owed some money or deceived them in some sort of fashion. Did we hear that anybody was fed to a tiger, or lion, or hippopotamus, or any kind of animal? Were they torn apart? Were they cut up? Any of that stuff? No, we weren't hurt. We didn't hear any of that stuff. Like I said, the brutality of this one crime instantly puts conspiracy theorists to work. And they want to say that the drugs are what got them killed. Why would the cartel risk exposure of their crime organization, especially with all the feds in the area at the time? Why would they risk the exposure of their organization by just hitting 4 people? Why not just burn down the house? Kill everybody, burn down the house. And I'm not trying to be graphically awful here, but honestly, if you're gonna go do something, why not do it where it doesn't tie to anything or anyone in a crime organization? They left criminal evidence. They even stated it was a sloppy crime. So being sloppy, do you think that cartels are sloppy? Does this look sloppy to you? I'm going to go throw you in a pit with some lions and tigers and let them tear you apart. And there's not going to be anything left of you. Does that sound like sloppiness to you? No, that sounds like methodical disregard for anyone who steps in their way of what they're trying to accomplish.
Wild animals. And one of the people that employed the use of this torture method was a cartel boss known as Heriberto Lascano. Born in poverty on Christmas Day in December 1974 in Hidalgo, Mexico, he joined the military at the age of 17, serving in the elite special forces, dedicated to fighting guerrillas and drug trafficking organizations. He served in the army for 7 years and then deserted on March 27, 1998. When he was recruited by Ociel Cárdenas Guillén and Arturo Guzmán de Sena to join Los Zetas. Heriberto, aka Z3 and El Lasca, was one of the most wanted Mexican drug lords of our time. According to authorities, he was the master at torturing his victims. He became known for using this method known as La Paleta, and this would involve a victim being stripped naked and brutally beaten with a board. Reports also say Lascano tied a man to a tree and severely beat him until he broke his legs. And then to top it off, he left him tied to that tree for about 3 days until he died. Lascano had a ranch with a lot of lions and tigers and was particularly known for killing his victims by feeding them to those wild animals. Although he didn't starve these animals, he would keep them hungry enough for when he had a victim for them to devour. He said he was fascinated by the way his pets tore apart their bodies. He enjoyed watching the process of torturing his victims and would laugh at their pain. Now, the general process was that he would force these people into a cage and allow an audience to view the proceedings. Unfortunately, he never got a taste of his own medicine. Instead, he was killed in a 2012 shootout with Mexican military officials. Flaying. Summer of 2018, a video popped up online that shook Mexico, revealing a horrifying and unsettling scene. Filmed in the hills of La Unión, near the border of Costa Grande and Tierra Caliente. It featured a gruesome murder of a father and son by members of a Mexican cartel. 2 men were tied up, made to kneel on the ground, having their mouths gagged and their hands tied tightly. The captors questioned the older man, beating him with what looked like a large wooden stick.
Okay, their hands were tied, they were gagged, beaten with a wooden stick. There's a whole bunch of people around watching this. So, in theory, a lot of people's theories that this happened in the home. Where are all these footprints? Or were they fed to animals? Were they flown to Mexico and thrown into a pit and let the animals go after them? No, they weren't. This takes time. This takes intent. And this takes unthinkable brutality. They want to send a message. There was no message in the Idaho 4 case. And you say, what happened in a home? They were stabbed, brutal. They were taken to Linda Lane, and there was supposedly somebody shooting them with a beanbag. Oh, yeah, he was a cartel member shooting them with a beanbag. Come on. Do you see any beanbag guns with any of these guys? Nope. So you're. Oh, yeah. The beanbag gun was supposedly in the backseat of the cop's car because they were involved also. I forgot to put that in there. Let's not forget that. The beanbag guy that was in the tunnel shooting one of the victims with a beanbag gun. Do you see any beanbag guns here? Like I just said? Hell no. Why would they be using beanbag guns? Come on, bro. If they're as ruthless as they say they are, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it in every facet of your being. It's not going to be something that you can talk about on YouTube without fearing demonetization. You're going to feel it everywhere you talk about it. Your theories are going to be chilling and crippling to the effect of what you're trying to get across. But no, these other theories that these other creators are talking about, they're talking about these people that are low-level drug dealers that that went in here and committed these crimes, and then they got off for it. They were out on furlough. They went on the run. And then there was a warrant put out for them. And then they were captured. But they're tied into this organization, which I'm going to show the intro of the Aryan Brotherhood. I wasn't going to ever show it, but you know what? It's been a hot topic for so long. I'm going to put it out there by my good friend Gabe Morales. Telling me that they do this over there in Mexico, but they would come to the U.S. and all of a sudden change their methodology of annihilating people. Especially when you're going to go to the extreme of killing 4 people and you're just going to be as calm as you can, walk in, stab 4 people, and leave. No extremeness, no calling cards, none of that. Get off the gas.
The violence inflicted upon him was unimaginably horrific. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, the father was beheaded right in front of his son with a small knife that looked like a pen. The most heartbreaking scene in this video was the son's reaction after seeing his father die. The shock factor in his tears moved the whole nation. The fact that the father chose not to fight against his captors was somewhat shocking. It appeared as though he had accepted his...
That's another thing, guys. I hate using that word, but I don't know why it came out, guys. That's another thing. If you had been snitched on by an individual before they went, while they were free on the street, you'd take that individual to where you were going to execute their family members and have them watch it. And then you'd kill them. You wouldn't do it with them not around. If you're going to send a message, you're sending the message to everyone involved with that family. So if this one person snitched on this group and then they took out the families for that snitching, that person would have been involved in that crime scene. They would have been in that house watching their loved ones be taken out due to their disrespect of the gang due to snitching, getting people locked up. If truly they were cartel hits or Aryan brother hits, that person would have been in the house watching their loved ones be killed in front of them if they couldn't get to her or the other person or the other person. You think they can't get to those other people, especially if they had as much interaction drug wise with these people or money wise? You think they can't get to them? No, we can't get to them, so let's go get their kids. Tell me how much that makes sense to you. But I can spin a story too. I can spin a story and I can make you believe it. But I want you to use your own brain to make it make sense for you rather than using my logic trying to debunk what other people say. Obviously, a lot of people believe that these individuals that spin these stories are geniuses and brilliant and all this other stuff. That's cool. But I'm spitting facts here.
Fate, perhaps as a result from the trauma from previous beatings or from being paralyzed by the severity of the situation. After they took out the father, the son had to go through a much longer and more agonizing ordeal. The captors would cruelly flay his chest with knives. During this gruesome act, the son remained conscious, drifting in and out of shock. The video shows just how far these cartels would go to ensure that every part of their operation ran smoothly. In 2010, Guzman, or El Chapo, made headlines after he recorded a video of himself using the flaying torture technique as he beheaded a member of a rival cartel, Hugo Hernandez. El Chapo, with a chainsaw, flayed Hernandez, and then he ordered his soldiers to stitch the cut-off skin on a ball to add to his warning intended for the Juarez cartel. Hernandez's torso was found in a plastic container, and the rest of his remains were left on the streets of Los Mochis as a chilling message to El Chapo's rivals. With their special knives, they would meticulously strip the skin from their victims, or resort to peeling their faces off with other sharp objects, amidst agonizing screams. The cartels have honed their proficiency in this barbaric practice, knowing how to keep victims alive for prolonged suffering, reserved for the most egregious offenders, like rival cartel members, double agents, and thieves. The sheer brutality of flaying someone just shows you these guys aren't messing around. How you can inflict.
So if you're an informant, like these kids have been speculated of being, you don't think they would have been rounded up together if this was a hit? Why would they have killed two at a time? Why would they have went up the stairs, killed those two, and then down the stairs, killed those other two, and then left the other two alive? No, you get everybody in the house so nobody escapes. And you take out everybody. You don't leave any witnesses. That's how it works. And you'd probably have their family members that owed you money or that deceived you or that, you fronted some drugs and they didn't pay you or they shorted you or they spent your money on certain things as other people are suggesting. You'd have their family members there watching you take out these people. Nobody would be alive. If this situation is being perceived, maybe that's what happened in the 8 hours. Maybe they muffled the screams. Maybe they muffled them being tied up. Oh, by the way, there was no tying up. Remember that? There was no bounding. There was no being tied up. But there was no screams either. So you're telling me that people were taken out in the most heinous way as presented by these other people, and there was none of this going on? Because I was watching a Linda Lane video last night in the members only, and we watched from 4 o'clock until 4:17. and if people were being taken out as suggested, you would have heard gut-wrenching screams, don't you think? I believe so. I would believe so. But who am I? Let's keep going.
Inflict such unimaginable pain while these people scream for their lives is way beyond us. Dermatologists have noted that the typical causes of death due to flaying are shock, critical loss of blood, or other bodily fluids, hypothermia, or infections. They stated that the actual death is estimated to occur from a few hours up to a few days after the flaying. If this isn't dying hard, we don't know what is.
A few hours to a few days. Maybe that's what happened in those 8 hours. Maybe that's what they were waiting on. The cartel was sitting around watching, waiting for them to die. I seriously doubt it. But you know what? There's some very smart sleuths on here, and they'll tell you exactly what they believe happened. Get off the fairy tales, man. Get off the fairy tales. Stop listening to the crap that you hear from other people that happens that did not happen in here based on this and what you're about to see after this.
Dismemberment. In 2015, Texas law apprehended Marciano Chano Millan Vasquez, an alleged hitman for the Los Zetas cartel, involved in this 2013 kidnapping of a former drug trafficking associate. Now, this associate was testifying against Vasquez, claiming the cartel assassin took him to this undisclosed location where Vasquez was keeping his family of 3. In his words, when the hitman removed his blindfold, the drug associate saw a couple and their daughter standing near a flaming barrel. According to him, Vasquez and other members present forced the parents to watch as Vasquez dismembered their daughter with an axe. It's not only Vasquez. A lot of people in the cartel execute their victims through grievous acts of injecting them with either morphine, adrenaline, or heroin, which would affect their central nervous system and make them stay awake through the process, and then would make the use of heavy, sharp blades and sometimes even kitchen knives to chop off the victim's limbs completely. Throughout the torture, these members would avoid cutting close to vital organs to keep the victims in agonizing pain for much longer. The combination of blood loss, infections, and shock from extreme pain is the perfect torture cocktail to get people ready for the pearly gates. These poor souls have no choice but to give up whatever information they're withholding, and more often than not would die from the pain. It's a case of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, putting the victim through a slow and agonizing death as well as making the body disposal easier. In some cases, the body parts are left in public areas to serve as a message, threatening those who go against the cartel that put it there. A well-known example, October 2010, Israel Ricon, a cartel member, wasn't just murdered, but was dismembered for killing the son of one of El Chapo's allies. When El Chapo got his hands on him, he had him tortured until he fell unconscious. But he had a doctor on standby to make sure he didn't just die too quickly. El Chapo ordered his men to brutalize him in all sorts of gruesome ways, which ended.
So, as far as we know, these individuals in this one case were taken out rather quickly because of the time frame of the crime. So they weren't tortured. What the purpose of just taking somebody out? If you're wanting to send a message, if you're that angry at somebody snitching, or you're that pissed off because they supposedly flushed drugs down the toilet, or you're so angry because a person was telling everything, wouldn't you want to do as they're saying right here? I know that if I was in that position, if I was ever at this point of life, it wouldn't be a quick death. If I was that angry at this person or their family, everybody would know about it. Everybody. There'd be no doubt. because this is a business. This is not a fairy tale. This is not something that you read about happening. It really does happen. And most of the time, these individuals, their fate is worse than anything we've ever imagined.
In the dismemberment of his limbs, and his remains were later dumped into the Mexican city of Culiacan.
And the reason I'm talking about this, because all your theories about this being a trap house and a serious money or drug running place of business, like there was so much drugs and so much money running through this house that these cartels or any other gangs associated with that type of brutality would be able to just lightly just stab people, and even though it was brutal, I'm not minimizing the crime, okay? But you're trying to minimize it. You're trying to make it sound like there was tons of drugs and tons of money. They're not going to waste their time on being exploited. Was there DEA amongst the agents that were investigating this crime? Was there any other agencies from the Mexican side, since it was a cartel hit, that you assume were they there investigating? We don't know, but chances are we would have known. There's plenty of photos of the people around investigating, and they all have their nice little letters on the back of their jackets and coats. And, you would have seen Policia, you would have seen Customs, you would have seen DEA, you would have seen all these things, but we didn't. So, all these people that have these theories about this being a hit, I hope that this dispels some of your rumors or belief.
On their torture shelf, dismemberment is that brutal tactic showcasing their sheer cruelty that is buried within these cartels. Beheading by chainsaw. In 2011, Felix Garcia and his uncle Barnabas Castro were viciously beheaded. Their demise is one of the first executions the world to see. Someone in a ski mask carrying a chainsaw, positioning the moving blade to their neck. You can already guess what's coming up. These men who worked for the notorious Sinaloa cartel made the big mistake of stealing from drug
All right, can y'all see me now? Hello? Can y'all see me now? Let me play a little bit more of this one, and then I'll play the area and stuff. Because this is getting, I mean... Okay, I'm on my phone now, so I don't know if y'all can see me, y'all can hear me. Um, I don't know what's going on with the internet. Until I fix it, I'm on my phone. And let's kind of chill with this. I might need to restart the computer. So let me do that, and then we'll keep going. Can y'all hear me? Let me know that y'all can see me, y'all can hear me. What do y'all think so far of this whole situation? It's pretty crazy, huh? All right, cool. Like I said, I'm on my phone, so um that's why it's probably different. But I don't know how to stream from YouTube on my phone, or I would. Yeah. Yeah, this is interesting. I mean, I have this video on my page, so um if for some reason we don't get to see the rest of it, why don't you go check it out? It's the one with the Mexican flag on it. But I'm gonna show the Aryan Brotherhood one, and this is due to my friend Gabe Morales made this on his page. Police, politicians, and gangs. That is his page. So so if you don't get a chance to see it tonight, maybe you could go to his page and you could see the video. But I'm gonna try to play it. No cap, bro. What's going on here? I ordered a new computer today. His page is called Police, Gangs, and Politicians. I don't know what's. I guess sometimes whenever the laptop's left open or left on for a substantial amount of time, it starts to malfunction. I don't know. That's why I ordered a new one today, so it should be in by Tuesday. Also have an email that I received a while back that I want to read to you guys. So, what do y'all think about the cartel stuff? Do you believe that anything that you're hearing right now corresponds with what they're talking about, even though it's not the Mexican cartels? Like I said, many cartels take situation from others and they kind of interject the same tools because they get away with it. You know what I mean? Leslie and Billy, how you doing? Rondi, and I don't know if anybody else has came into the chat since I've been gone. So if you have, welcome. I just rebooted, so let's see if this works. I don't believe it was cartels either. I don't believe it was Aryan Brotherhood. I don't believe all those theories because they just don't add up. They add up to people that really want to go along with that. I mean, you can put paperwork in front of me and you can make it add up, but doesn't mean that it is what you say it is. Especially when you know about these certain things and how they operate. I'm going to show you about the Aryan Brotherhood. That way, I didn't want to show it before because there was people beefing before on it, and I didn't want to get in the mix. But I believe that people should know the truth rather than just hear it by mouth. You know what I mean? And once again, I'm not trying to discredit anybody's channel. Make your money, make your business, do what you need to do, tell your stories, because as you say, it's strictly entertainment. It's not to slander anybody. Do what you do. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't always mean it's correct. Just because you can make it make sense. Yeah, I'm glad I ordered a new computer because obviously this one's going out or it's acting up, whatever. And I'm going to tell you, if you're watching this and if you follow all these other people and you believe in their theories, that's fine. I'm not here to debunk anybody. I'm just showing my own stuff. You know what I mean? I don't believe in copying other people's. Okay, can you all hear me? Okay, can you all hear me? Okay. I got that song in my head. I can't get it out. Yeah, my color's going out on this monitor too, so good thing I ordered a new one. Cheryl Butler, how you doing? Welcome to 12 Gauge Investigative. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being here. Okay, let's get back to my channel here. See, I just saw a headline that said revenge killing. Revenge killing for what? What was the killing about? You know what I mean? Like, honestly, if I want to put anybody in this portion, it would be low level street wannabe thugs. You know, the runners, the one that sell the dime bags, the medium sized stuff. It would be those type of people that could have potentially committed this. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them, but I'm not gonna say that it's cartel. I'm not gonna say that it's Aryan Aryan Brotherhood. None of that. Um, because I don't believe that the tactics match the crime. And you can say, well, you don't know everything that they found. Well, you don't think that if it was that kind of brutality. Let's use common sense here, okay? If it was that, why would they be so hell bent to be holding on to a criminology student? If it was that brutal, you don't think that the families would want you to be finding the person or persons responsible, and they would be okay with you blaming or saying that it was a criminology student? I just I don't see it. I don't see it. So this happened in the US. So I don't remember if y'all remember this case. Can y'all see that? You've asked me that before, Billy and Leslie.
Hundreds of other bone fragments, some which were burned, were all discovered during separate searches. If one of your loved ones was caught up in these kitchens, how would you feel about your government?
We have one victim who is alive as deputies arrived, and CPR was being given to multiple victims on scene. Unfortunately, no one, including the man who went to the hospital via ambulance, he was also pronounced dead at the hospital.
6 people are gunned down in California in what investigators initially called a cartel or gang-related hit. Former DEA and DOJ operative Derek Maltz comes on to give his thoughts on what may have happened. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
Okay, this case has to do with a family that was hit by a cartel. Pay attention to how they were dealt with. And this is sad. This is sad because there's a small child involved. And you're telling me that if any kind of gang went in there, they would have left 2 witnesses alive? That's the part that doesn't add up.
We want to get into this horrific shooting that happened in Goshen, California over the Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. 6 family members were found dead. 72-year-old Rosa Perez, 52-year-old Eladio Perez Jr., 50-year-old Jennifer Anala, 19-year-old Marcos Perez, and 16-year-old Alyssa Perez, as well as her 10-month-old baby, Nicholas Perez.
She was found, along with the infant, laying next to her mother, his mother, down the street. We believe that the 16-year-old teenage mother and her small infant actually was fleeing and running from the scene. What we have since learned through forensics, that it was clear that the shooters stood over the top of the 16-year-old mother and fired rounds into her head. The 10-month-old infant also suffered from the same attack. None of this was by accident. It was deliberate. Intentional and horrific.
Now, the sheriff had initially indicated that this appeared to be a cartel style execution, but then kind of walked that back and said that this could be gang related.
It is very clear that this family was a target and that there are gang associations involved, as well as drug investigations with this in this home. But let me make this very clear. Not all these people in this home are gang members, and not all these people in this home are drug dealers.
At the time of this recording, police have indicated that there are apparently 2 suspects, perhaps a third. So let me bring in Derek Maltz, who worked for the DEA for 28 years and was special agent in charge of the United States Department of Justice Special Operations Division. Derek, it is a pleasure to have you here on Sidebar, and thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So if I want to interpret that as what he said, not all people in the home were gang members, and the place was a target, or these people were targeted. They still didn't leave any survivors. None. Even the infant, which the mom was trying so hard to protect, as she was running in the backyard, hoping to put the baby down over the fence to protect it. She got killed. The baby got killed. It's a mindset where people do not have a conscience of what they're doing. They're going out on a mission and they're going to complete it. Whether it be gang members, whether it be the cartels, whether it be an individual that has this kind of hatred in their heart, it's going to happen. And any romanticizing or sensationalizing it still does not make it any worse of a crime.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. You have gunfire at 3:30 a.m., 6 victims. Authorities indicated it was targeted. 2 found in the street, 1 in the doorway of the home. What do you think led investigators to initially say that this could be cartel related?
Well, based on all the reports that I've read, obviously I wasn't at the crime scene. It certainly has all indications that this is another horrific act of cartel or a ruthless gang out there. But as you know, the gangs in California work very closely with the Sinaloa cartel, and there's a lot of turf battles. So it's definitely drug related. There's a very good chance the cartels are behind it. They actually are sending in operatives and hitmen into America on a daily basis now, because the southern border is wide open and they're taking advantage of the weakness there.
Can you just elaborate on that connection between the cartels and the gangs?
Well, I mean, the gangs are all over America, and the cartels now, the 2 major cartels, the Sinaloa cartel and the cartel Jalisco New Generation, they are dominating all aspects of the drug trade. So they're producing the drugs, especially the poisonous fentanyl that's killing Americans at a record rate.
Look at all those drugs. You mean that you would have flushed? Let's take this perspective, okay? Just for the sake of discussion. Dylan and Bethany were in a house, and in those 8 hours, they were getting rid of product, okay? This is the type of product that would have to push through that home and more in order for this to be that kind of hit. So you're telling me they flush all this, or I don't know how they would get rid of it down the drain. I mean, eventually it would clog stuff up, I'm sure. But in 8 hours, let's say that they got rid of it. And you're telling me they are not in witness protection or anything like that? Because if the cartel killed somebody over a bag of pills, and these 2 girls flushed all this down the drain somehow and got rid of it, they're still alive? How does that make sense, guys?
Rate they are distributing this stuff into their hub cities. So like Los Angeles area has a hub for transportation across America. And then in each of the cities, they have their cartel representatives. But in many cases, it's the gangs that are distributing the drugs and collecting the money in these different cities. So the gangs routinely operate with the cartels. And then there's always these disputes and these territorial challenges for the gangs to, dominate. So this is nothing new. I mean, if you look at the El Chapo case, in Chicago, I'll never forget it when I was briefed.
So let's take the police angle, okay? Because I've heard this multiple times. The police were involved. The police were part of it. So if the police were involved with this house and this type of level, and they were selling or they were storing money or they were storing guns or they were storing drugs there, how would the police not able to protect these four? Wouldn't you protect the people that were making you the money? How did they fail to protect them? They were saying that every time that the police showed up at a noise complaint, they were checking out their investment, right? Well, how would the police not know to protect this house if it had that much money, that much drugs, that much weapons flowing through it? How would you let your investment get taken out and then try to cover it up by framing a nobody? See how that sounds? If that's the correct basis of y'all's theory, how did that work? How did the police fail them? Because they would have been trying to protect them, not infiltrate the house if it was making that much money. If people were going in and out of that house, you're telling me that all the people that were going in and out of that house were buying drugs, using drugs. There was so much money in that house that it was being stored. How did the police not protect that house? Then how did the cartel or the gangs not protect that house if it was making that much money? If they were paying off the police to stay away? How were they not protecting it? And you don't think that another drug house would have popped up in Idaho, Moscow by now with the same MO? If it was a turf battle, if it was about making money, it was about using this home as a trafficking establishment. You don't think that there'd be 2, 3 more houses already popped up by now? As one creator stated, this person ran across the yard with a backpack to the other home to take the drugs while the police were going to the backyard. That's some big city stuff right there. Supposedly this town is not that big. So you don't think that everybody knows in that town everybody's business? Especially the neighbors around that house. You don't think that they saw stuff, heard stuff, put 2 and 2 together? You don't think that they were that smart? Everybody's stupid, right? Only the people that see shadows and have bugs showing us the way that the crime was committed and things like that. They're the smart ones. But hey, that's what they do. You do you. But what I'm telling you is this. If this house was as lucrative kind of enterprise as they were claiming it was, because we were told it was a trap house at the beginning. We're told it was a drug house, and the house was targeted. So if the house was targeted, that means that everybody involved in that house would have been dealt with. And I can almost promise you there would be more houses in Moscow doing the same thing at this point. And there very well could be. But does it make them working for the cartels or the Aryan Brotherhood? It just makes them wanting to make some money any way possible. Do I believe the frat boys were involved? No. They might have been customers. They might have been low-level mules. You know, pushing product across town, dropping off stuff, whatever. But if there was such an organization going on in Moscow, Idaho, as people wanted to see him, you don't think that house would have got busted before these kids got murdered? If they were informants? Because one thing you don't know about informants that hasn't been talked about, because I've had interaction with some informants, not recently, but in my time, and they brief their informants hourly. Those informants are on the clock, round the clock. Every hour they're briefing with the FBI or the DEA. Their every move. They're always working. So they would have had a way to identify where these people were round the clock. And you don't think the suspicious activities of us not knowing where these people were from these time frames to these time frames, if they really were informants, you don't think some other agency didn't know where they were? If that was their level of work? Other people don't want you to know that because they want to keep the suspicion going, the narratives going. But that's how it works. I've had multiple people that have been informants sit across from me on a desk. And they've told me how it works. Would they lie to me? Hell, only if you believe a drug addict or a criminal would lie to you. Then that kind of debunks my theory. But you know what? You believe people that don't show you any proof. All they have is little fancy shades on. Like I said, let them do them. But I can tell you there's more to this game than being presented on these lives. And the reality is it's not sensationalized like that really on the streets. There's people lives at risk 24/7. And most of the time it isn't college kids that are being informants like they want you to believe. It's people that are working for the law enforcement that have been caught up, that are working with the federal government, that have high charges that they're trying not to get busted for. So when they're telling you that college kids are all informants, I wouldn't doubt that a little bit, but not to the extent of the federal government wanting to take down high-level people. That would make more sense to me.
It was the Chapo, Sinaloa cartel that was sending tons of cocaine and methamphetamine into Chicago, and all that stuff was being distributed by gangs in Chicago. So it's like seamless. It's overlapping everywhere. So you can't really distinguish one from the other in many cases.
What stands out to me is the ruthless nature of this, right? Police have indicated that not everybody in that house was somebody who was involved in the drug trade. They indicated that this young mother was an innocent victim. The baby was an innocent victim.
I have also been quoted as saying this was a cartel-like execution. Make no mistake, I'm not saying that this is a cartel, but also be clear that I am not eliminating that possibility. These people were clearly shot in the head, and they were also shot in places that the shooter would know that quick death would occur.
Did you hear what he said? They were all shot in the head, and they were shot in places where the shooter knew that there would be a quick death. It wasn't a sloppy crime like the coroner stated in the Idaho 4 case. She did say it was sloppy, or it was sloppy. It was stated by somebody there was a sloppy crime scene. There was blood everywhere and all this, that, and the other. Why not just go in there and shoot them all? That's what cartels do. But they weren't done that way.
And for me, when I look at this, the first thing that I thought of, well, maybe they're thinking gang, maybe they're thinking cartel because of the ruthless nature of it. Is it typical that you would have these hits where innocent victims are, I don't want to say the target, because it almost makes me want to say maybe they were a target. Maybe it's a calling card. Obviously, there was somebody in that house, or maybe there's someone in the house that was the primary target, but you kill innocent victims to send a message. Am I off with that?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the cartels right now are operating like a global terror organization like ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Hezbollah, and they are trying to intimidate people. And it's really taking it to a new level when you're executing a 16-year-old.
Okay, so a 16-year-old mom and a 2-month-old baby, they're sending a message to intimidate. Who were the gangs or the cartels trying to intimidate in that murder? If you're saying they were killed by these people, who were they intimidating? Who did they intimidate? Another gang? Another rival gang? Were people selling out of that home that were associated with a rival gang? No. The people that they want you to believe were intimidated were the people that supposedly told on them. So you're saying that the 2 ladies that are now in prison were Aryan Brotherhood? AB? You're telling me that they were part of the AB? Has it ever been spoken anywhere that they were affiliated? Has it ever been spoken anywhere that they denounced their affiliation? Because people snitch all the time. What people are doing here on YouTube is dry snitching. Even if it is for entertainment purposes. They're dry snitching. They're dry snitching about the organization and what it's about. But I'm not going to go into that level because it's none of my business what they do. People make money, they make money. They break the law, they get caught. You know, eventually, they get sentenced. But what I can tell you is they want you to believe that these 2 ladies, if they weren't affiliated, by snitching to the cops, got their daughters killed. You get what I'm saying? If that was the case, there'd be more murders all over the place, don't you think? Because neighbors see stuff. People see their neighbors dealing drugs or having cars over at all times of the night. Don't you think that if the people really wanted to retaliate, they'd be killing these people in the middle of the night in their sleep? There'd be a lot more of these crimes going on. Who's to say there aren't? But really, does it really make sense? You know? Does it really make sense? And it just goes on to talk about this. I'm going to go ahead and turn this one off and start the Aryan Brotherhood one. Because my friend Gabe has a long history with a lot of these gangs, if not all. You know, he's done a lot of interviews and a lot of information that I trust his judgment and knowledge because he's been on my show before. He's talked about it. So let's see what he had to say about the AB. And by no means is this me stating this is fact. I'm going to quote somebody else and say, this is strictly for entertainment. I'm not trying to slander anybody.
By chance, he should stumble or lose control, his brothers are there to help reach his goal. For a worthy brother, no need is too great. He need not ask, fulfillment's his fate. For an Aryan brother, death holds no fear. Vengeance will be his, through his brothers still here. For the brotherhood means just what it implies. A brother's a brother till that brother dies. And if he is loyal and never lost faith, in each brother's heart will always be a place. So a brother I am and will always be, even after my life is taken away from me. I'll lie down content, knowing I stood, head held high, walking proud in the brotherhood.
People that are older and know what time it is know it's just business.
Yeah.
So that's something that you got to ask yourself as well. This individual, Mr. Farley, as people bring up and talk about all the time, do you see any AB tattoos on this man? Is he really proud of his connection? Because as you can tell, I've been around gang members, cartel members. I've been around a lot of people that are depicted in this true crime community. So I can speak on it. But I can tell you, if people are really affiliated, they're proud of their ink. It shows everywhere. You're going to see it. You're going to identify it. Look at those pictures of Mr. Farley. Do you see any ink on him? Do you see any ink on him? Do you see any ink on Kara? Do you see any ink on that other lady? Maddie's stepmom. Do you see any affiliated tattoos with any of the girls in the house? On any of the frat boys that people want to show you? Look for the tattoos. Look for the ink. Look for the lightning bolt. Look for the peckerwood, the woody woodpecker, and others, the shamrocks. Look for the ink. It'll tell you a lot on who's affiliated with who. And if there's no ink and you're deemed to be claiming this organization, that could lead you to death sentence. I don't know about the Aryan Brotherhood because I don't know a lot about it, but that's why I'm going to play this because Gabe does. But I can tell you the MS-13 or the Mexican Mafia or any of these Latin gangs, if you're perpetrating that you're a member and you're really not, it could get you killed because you're not a part of the organization. Okay, Scholar Mead has a lot of ink. All right, good point. I don't know who that is, but maybe we can talk about that.
Greetings and welcome. It's your host, Gabe Morales. I'm embarking on a new series based off of some stories included in my book, The History of the Aryan Brotherhood. Right off the top, a few ground rules for this series. Just like my MAN West Familia series, I will not tolerate trolls. If all you want to do is badmouth any of these videos, don't waste your time because I monitor this channel every time a comment pops up and it will swiftly be deleted and you will be banned from this channel. I do encourage you to respectfully ask questions and ask for clarification if something doesn't sound right to you. While I've been working these guys for over 3 decades and consider myself to be somewhat of an expert, I do make mistakes, just like all humans do. But I try very hard to make sure my info is accurate via validation lists from the California Department of Corrections, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and other agencies. I go off of legal court cases and arrest records, as well as stories told to me, convicts and staff, direct interviews I've done with some of these guys, as well as news articles. Although I found they can be off at times, so I try to get at least 3 independent sources and not just go off one. So if there's something that I'm not 100% sure, I always try to make it very clear that it is only opinion or a belief, not necessarily a proven fact. As far as my background, many of you already know I mainly identify as Chicano, Mexican, and American, whatever that means. Contrary to what I hear some Mexicanos and Chicanos say, Mexican is not a race. It's a blend of races and cultures, as well as most Americans are not 100% European, no matter what they might believe. And I think a DNA test would usually prove that. I do know that my great-grandfather, Don Antonio, was very fair-skinned and tall, leading me to believe what I was told by family, that he was at least part Spanish, or mostly Spanish. My great-grandmother, Juanita Tamayo, was said to be 100% Yaqui, and I've seen her name on a Yaqui tribal roll call list down in Mexico, so I know that to be true. And my father easily could have been mistaken for black. He was very dark, as seen here. So while I haven't taken a DNA test, I'm pretty sure I have Yaqui and Spanish blood in me from my father's side. My mother did take a DNA test and found out that she's almost half English and almost half Irish, with a smidgen of other Europeans. My half-sister Laura's grandparents were Scandinavian. They protect themselves as whites from other races, but it is a known fact that whites mostly kill whites, blacks mostly attack other blacks, and Latinos, Chicanos, what have you, mostly hurt their own. I won't talk a lot about it in these episodes, but I have in other episodes as far as gang prevention and intervention. So check those out on my channel if you want to see a more of a social worker background. But it is definitely not my intention to glorify any of these prison gangs. In fact, quite the opposite. I hope that some of these stories will make people more aware that the hype seldom adds up when you're locked in a prison cell 23 hours a day. In my earlier book, Prison Gangs in America, I covered most of the major prison gangs and security threat groups in jails and prisons around the country. I also showed their relationship to street gangs and impact on crime in our communities. But after my book was published, some people told me they were mostly interested in just one particular group. So I broke them all down, such as in this series, which will focus on the Aryan Brotherhood and occasionally some related groups. If the reader is interested in other detailed AB accounts, I recommend books by Pete Early, The Hot House, Life Inside Leavenworth Prison, and Blood In, Blood Out, The Violent Empire of the Aryan Brotherhood by John Lee Brooke. For a better understanding of other white supremacists and not just the AB, I recommend checking out the Southern Poverty Law Center's website. And you also can see the Biography Channel segment, Bearing of the Brotherhood, that I appeared in and has rerun on National Syndicate TV stations since its initial airing. One of the main comments that I made on that show is that these guys probably should have named themselves the Heroin Brotherhood. And indeed, many of them have been addicted to heroin and have killed for it. While there's no hard proof they were distinct or highly organized pre-AB groups, the California Department of Corrections called white gangs in the system by various names, such as the Diamond Tooth Gang, the Bluebirds, the Nazis, and finally, several members from these groups joined together as the early nucleus of the Aryan Brotherhood. You'll find some people who disagree on when they first started, but my research has shown that they started in San Quentin in 1967 after a white inmate named Robert Holderman was killed by black inmates. For black inmates, the whites were often favored by the guards. And Abe also called the brand from Louis L'Amour Western novels. A member who was Irish by the name of Red Mahoney influenced the AB to use the shamrock as one of their symbols. Red Mahoney was very close to Mickey Manier and other individuals like Eddie Vaughn. These white prisoners became known as the Aryan Brotherhood. According to prison gang expert Brian Perry, who I've had on the show before, in order to be a bona fide AB, you must have the rock, the shamrock. It is my experience that most definitely, if you have that shamrock, you are an AB. They do consider that to be their symbol and will not allow people to false claim to put that on unless they're a member. Some other early members were Wayne Bulldog Ladd, William Machine Gun Girk, also had Italian Mafia mob ties. There was also Bucky Garrett, Carl Nooner, and Mark Douglas, who all had ties to Washington State. Since I grew up in Washington State and met some of these guys, I find it interesting that there's some California prison gang experts say there was no Mexican Mafia or Nuestra Familia or Black Guerrilla Family or Aryan Brotherhood in Washington State. Ever heard of a guy named Wayne Bridgewater? In fact, The Aryan Brotherhood had ties to McNeil Island Prison when it was a federal institution way back in the 1970s. Several documented hits occurred at McNeil Island that were attributed to AB members there, including Wayne Bridgewater, another inmate from Washington State that some state was never a member but only associate, while other state was an AB member, was Washington State Lifer Club President Kenny Tuka, who was actually half Filipino and half white. Later on, AB Council member David Sahakian.
So maybe this is why it's such a popular belief that this organization had something to do with it. Like he just said, there was a high area of Aryan Brotherhood in the Washington State area.
Cross Kenny out. Kenny Tuka is also credited with sanctioning the Aryan family prison gang in Washington State, and in fact was sold up with one of the three original AF council persons, an individual by the name of David Davidson. Other early AB were Tall Dennis Murphy, Joe Morse, Danny Animal Newton, Danny Rawlingson. There's also Donald Hale, Fast Freddie Mendrin, Ronnie Spots Berg, Tommy Slim Center, Ronnie Harper, Robert Chuka Windecker, Larry Witzerg, Mike Carmichael, Eddie Burnett, Mervyn Moose Forbes, and Paul Allen. Some of the first federal BOP AB members were Robert Conley and George Hart. I will cover all these individuals and many more as we go through the roll call series. I probably should make it clear here that there is a California AB and a federal BOP AB that consider each other to be brother gangs. However, there are multiple other gangs in other states that have called themselves the Aryan Brotherhood that are not considered to be bona fide ABs by at least the California AB. Some of these groups, like the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, say we don't need them. We run things in our state. And indeed, some of these Aryan Brotherhoods do run things in their correctional systems, in their county jails and states. However, when it comes to the federal system, the California AB consider themselves to be the elite. The Aryan Brotherhood is run by a commission in California and in the federal system. For instance, in the year 2012, it is generally accepted that the California Commission consisted of Chunky Staton, Wildman Portman, and Country Chance. In more recent years, the commissioners are said to have been Danny Troxell, Renegade Yandel, and Country Chance remained on the commission. There is also a council, which can be members who are pulled up to the commission or members who are moved back from the commission to the council. Some of the individuals believed to have been council members, at least at one time, are individuals such as Desperado Breches, Tricky Ricky Terplinger, and Youngster Stinson, who is also believed to have been part of the commission at one time. As far as the federal commission, there's been individuals such as longtime AB member Barry Mills, who died in 2018, T.D. Bingham, and Big Mac Mahinley. Federal council members are believed to have been individuals such as David Sahakian and Mark Nyquist. These positions often change when individuals either die of natural causes or somehow found to be in bad standings. For instance, Big Mac McKinley took over for commission member Thomas Silverstein when he was totally isolated at Leavenworth after he assaulted and killed a Bureau of Prisons officer. It usually takes a majority to make a decision. In other words, at least 2 out of 3 commissioners have to okay a hit or okay a decision. These commissions oversee all major decisions within the Aryan Brotherhood, but do take advice from council members.
So if that is my interpretation, and I plan on getting Gabe up here again, he's a very busy man, but I would believe that you can't put a green light on somebody unless it's approved. But I could be wrong, especially out here on the streets. You have your different affiliations. This sounds, if it was done, I would say this sounded like a low-level street gang trying to get some kind of cred. But I would say it had nothing to do with the frats or anybody in the school part of it. But, I could be wrong. This is just my opinion.
The California Aryan Brotherhood is actually pretty small compared to the rest of the population, less than 100, but they're still able to control tens of thousands of white convicts. You could check out some of my previous episodes on the AB that explain some of this, and I'll explain more as we go along. The Aryan Brotherhood.
And one thing just popped into my mind. One of the individuals that keeps getting thrown around is supposedly tied to a female, but this individual is black. How could he be associated with the female if she's associated with this, if he's black? Make that make sense. See, these type of things you have to ask yourself. You just can't put all information together and be like, yeah, that sounds right. That sounds right. Because there's certain codes that go along with all this. It's just not cut and dry like people want you to believe.
It has no known constitution. However, they do have a creed they came up with shortly after they started, around 1970. An Aryan brother is without a care. He walks where the weak and heartless won't dare. And if by chance he should stumble or lose control, his brothers are there to help reach his goal. For a worthy brother, no need is too great. He need not ask, fulfillment's his fate. For an Aryan brother, death holds no fear. Vengeance will be his, through his brothers still here. For the brotherhood means just what it implies. A brother's a brother till that brother dies. And if he is loyal and never lost faith, in each brother's heart will always be a place. So a brother I am and will always be, even after my life is taken away from me. I'll lie down content, knowing I stood, head held high, walking proud in the brotherhood. Their main rivals were the blacks, in particular the Black Guerrilla family in the 1970s and the Washington, D.C. blacks in the 1980s. Which is a group of convicts who always go to the federal BOP if convicted out of the federal district, where the nation's capital is. That beef is covered very much during the episode I was on, The Burying of the Brotherhood.
The DC blacks disrespected the Aryan Brotherhood, and they had to answer for that. And a kite was sent through the prison system between the Aryan Brotherhood members.
War with DC blacks. And with that, the Aryan Brotherhood in Lewisburg had their marching orders.
They were basically attacked in their cells. The element of surprise is very important with the Aryan Brotherhood. They didn't see it coming. There was lookouts from the Aryan Brotherhood, and then the hitmen would enter the cell and then stab these guys to death.
Lynch shank through the throat of Mr. Abdul Salam.
Salam was an alleged leader.
And we'll get into that more when we talk about Barry Mills and some of the other Aryan Brotherhood shot callers in the federal system. They also were supported by female associates such as Brenda Jo Riley, who'd run messages and dope for the AB. Brenda was the wife of a Nazi lowrider / Aryan Brotherhood member named Elliot Rascal Grizzle.
See, there's women involved in this as well. So if they're really pushing that narrative of snitches and people that are locked up right now currently, any of these women could be locked up as well and hear about this. And a hit could be put out on one of these mothers that are incarcerated. But people don't think about that because do they really research that deeply, or are they just trying to push a narrative?
Brotherhood often uses female carriers, girlfriends, and wives to help carry out business. However, today they rely more on smuggled in cell phones. We'll get more into these stories and more as we go through our Aryan Brotherhood roll call series. I have lots of pictures and we'll try to insert them when available, but I've created a standard Aryan Brotherhood placard like I did for the NF series when I don't have a picture of the individual who I'm addressing, but still feel they need to be covered. Don't get all bent out of shape. I may skip over some names. especially if I don't have a lot of background info of what I'm putting out. So if there's somebody you're wondering about, hit me up in the comments section. I probably have some documentation on them, and I'll see.
Okay, let's go to the next video, because Gabe, like I said, has a lot of great information on this. As you can tell, he's covered a lot of different gangs, not just the AB. So let's go with the first A.
2000.
I was just giving you kind of like an introduction to it. Because knowledge is power. And if you're not knowledgeable on something, you fall for anything. Get what I'm saying? Here we go.
An Aryan brother is without a care. He walks where the weak and heartless won't dare. And if by chance he should stumble or lose control, his brothers are there to help reach his goal. For a worthy brother, no need is too great. He need not ask, fulfillment's his fate. For an Aryan brother, death holds no fear. Vengeance will be his, through his brothers still here. For the brotherhood means just what it implies. A brother's a brother till that brother dies. And if he is loyal and never lost faith. Greetings and welcome. It's your host, Gabe Morales. We are embarking on a new series of Aryan Brotherhood members over almost 6 decades. Today, I'll start off with the A last names, as in Abel. Speaking of Abel, the first one I'll address is John Abel, who was an early AB member with CDC number A as in Alpha 77134. John Abel was given BOP number 34887-136. And just as today, inmates out of California that are affiliated with various prison gangs often have heavy influences on federal prison yards. For instance, it is said that inmates George Lovell and Ernie Abshar killed a man at USP Leavenworth in 1973 over a drug transaction, and that John Abel okayed it. This was said to be an isolated event ordered by the AB, but I understand that they stabbed him, nearly killed him, and they got away with it. Likewise, in 1977 at USP Leavenworth, John Abel put out a contract on John Seymour, which left Seymour a vegetable for life. Nobody was ever charged on that beef either. John Abel, very close to AB shot caller Dallas Scott at Leavenworth, and John Abel was later moved to Marion with many of the other AB shot callers, and I show was housed there in 1981. He was released from the feds in February 1990, but then I show got popped in California and was given H number, as in Henry, 28575. But I show is currently not in custody. In the intro to the Aryan Brotherhood, I briefly discuss Kenny Aktuka, aka Special K, who was a longtime inmate from the Washington Department of Corrections, and in fact was the president of the Lifers Club, of which the majority of inmates were white. As I stated previously, Kenny Aktuka actually half Filipino, but he very famously held off prison staff for several days when the Lifers Club was running the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla, Washington. The Lifers Club was responsible for attacking several staff members as well as planting bombs. And eventually, Kenny was sent to the feds under BOP number 00248-045. When he arrived there, he was greeted by fellow Washington State Aryan Brotherhood member Wayne Bridgewater, and they were very close. Both individuals were schooled by one of the first Aryan Brotherhood members in the federal system, George Harp, as seen in this picture here. It is documented that Kenny killed an inmate named William Stansfield at USP Atlanta on April 28, 1979. He was assisted by an inmate named William Bryan. Evidently, Stansfield was murdered on orders by Aryan Brotherhood shot caller Barry Mills because Stansfield allegedly was stupid enough of stealing heroin from Mills' private stash in his cell. I was told that Kenny Aktuka was made an Aryan Brotherhood member for this hit, but like I said, that status was later questioned. Evidently, Kenny became a foul of Aryan Brotherhood council person David Sahakian, I believe around the year 2003, in it being released from the BOP and sent back to Washington, D.C., and currently resides at Stafford Creek, which is a high security prison in the southwestern part of Washington State. There was Ralph Pirate Ainsworth, who was actually out of Kentucky, but moved to California sometime in the 1960s and was arrested there and sent to CDC under B number 26737. I show that he was housed at San Quentin in 1972 and was a part of the United White People's Party in 1976. I have notes that he was in St. Louis in 1990, and I'm unsure what happened to him after that. There was Paul Allen, who I mentioned in my first video. I had a picture of Paul Allen, but unfortunately, I can't find a lot of my pictures. I'm still searching, though. So hopefully before we get to the Z's, I can find that picture of Paul Allen. But I remember he was noted by the California Gang Task Force as being a very influential member in the Aryan Brotherhood in the early 1970s. There's Marie Crystal Alonso, who was part of the Manson family. My understanding is that Maria Crystal Alonso became a member of the Manson family after meeting Susan Sadie Atkins, who was involved in the massacres committed by Charles Manson family in the 1970s. That I covered in a couple special episodes about Charles Manson. Understand that she was the girlfriend of Aryan Brotherhood member Bobby Hedberg, who gifted her to Mexican Mafia honorary godfather Joe Morgan, as seen in this picture here. Also noted in this picture is Aryan Brotherhood member Dennis Canos, who is standing to the left of Joe Morgan. Also in this picture is Mexican Mafia original Eddie Potato Nose Loera and Emmy founder Buck Flores. There was a Jerry Emerson, aka Baby Boy, who I show was out of the Inland Empire and was affiliated with a skinhead group out of Ontario. I show that he was an Aryan Brotherhood member as well as a Nazi lowrider associate. I show he was first incarcerated on CDC number J as in John 700. I then show that he was picked up by the feds under BOP number 11912-12 and was housed at Lompoc in 2003, but had been released from federal custody by June 2016. I then showed that he was reincarcerated in CDC under B numbers in Bravo, T as in Thomas, 717. And I show is currently at Valley State Prison. There's a Frank Fleetwood Ambrose, who's out of Oakland, but I also show had ties to Washington State as well as the state of Oregon. I show he had a B number of 44413 in the mid 1970s when he was documented as being a member of the Aryan Brotherhood. He then was released on that number, but reincarcerated in the late 70s under B number 95139. I also show that he was arrested in Whatcom County in Washington State near the Canadian border in 1976, as well as did time at the Oregon State Penitentiary in 1977. I show he was picked up by the feds and given BOP number 59218-065 and was housed at the ADX shortly after it opened, but was released in May of 2014. I believe he had a brother named Leonard, as he also was out of Oakland and also had a B number of 1. There to help reach his goal. For a worthy brother, no need is too great. You need not ask. Fulfillment's his fate. For an Aryan brother, death holds no fear. Vengeance will be his, through his brother still here. For the brotherhood means just what it implies. A brother's a brother till that brother dies. And if he is loyal and never lost faith, in each brother's heart will always be a place. So a brother I am and will always be, even after my life is taken away from me. I'll lie down content, knowing I stood, head held high, walking proud in the brotherhood.
People that are older and know what time it is know it's just business.
Yeah. Greetings and welcome. This is your host, Gabe Morales. Today we're going to cover the E and F last names, as in everything's fine. Hopefully everything's fine in your life today. Sit down and strap on your seatbelts as we cover some of the more influential Aryan Brotherhood members over the past 6 decades or so. I'll start off with James Elrod, aka Spider, who was an Aryan Brotherhood associate under H number 25268. Understand, when he was 29 years old and housed at Pelican Bay, he ended up strangling his cellmate, Felipe Cruz, in the chute. At this time period, there was quite a few in-cell murders on other AB members and associates who had somehow fell out of favor with the gang. I believe Felipe Cruz had been acting as a voluntary tear tender. I was told that the AB did the hit as a favor for the Mexican Mafia. This occurred in November 1997. There was a Jeffrey Gunslinger Ellsworth, who I show as an Aryan Brotherhood associate when he was at New Folsom in 2005. At that time, just post-RICO trial, the Aryan Brotherhood had been hit very hard on California prison yards. And so quite a few different white groups thought they'd step up their activity. Understand that Gunslinger told a gang called the Wolfpack that they had to disband and were no longer allowed to operate on the yard. Understand they didn't take this too kindly and that they beat him. He ended up getting out, but then returned in 2023 with a new CDC number of B as in Bravo. W is Mike 1544. And I show he is currently housed at Kern Valley State Prison. There was Anthony Tony Endicott out of Riverside County. He had D number 4545 that I believe he caught for a murder case. As I recall, he was in B facility working as a barber when a Northern Structure shot caller sat in his chair and was hit. I recall this guy very well because I heard he was also moving a lot of dope on that yard. And after this Norteño was hit, he was brought into the violence control unit in the early 1990s. I remember him being very angry about that. And he ended up shattering the unbreakable glass in his cell. I was working that day. And so, of course, we had to put that cell in bad order as being non-operational and move him to another cell. But he ended up breaking his hand and getting a cast. He is seen here with Aryan Brotherhood Commissioner Ronnie Renegade Yandel, but I believe he later distanced himself from the gang and is currently housed at Richard J. Donovan in San Diego. There was Larry Evans, who was out in Orange County. He was an old AB at San Quentin back in the early 70s under B number 8544. I show then he was housed at DVI in 1974, but eventually dropped out of the gang. There's Robert Vincent, aka Rage Eversol. He is documented as being AB associate. I show he had H number 75452. And he was one of the individuals named in that Aryan Brotherhood Fresnick case in the year 2020. I show that he was housed at Kern Valley State Prison when he was named in that indictment, but I show currently is not in custody, so he may be out to court. There was a Michael Whitey Eseli. I show that he was at least an Aryan Brotherhood associate from La Habra, which is a city in Orange County, California, when he had D number 3139, which he got for a burglary case in 1985. I show that he paroled in 1986, but then committed a bank robbery in 1991 and was housed in the BOP under number 96340-012. I show that he was housed at Lompoc in 1991 and had been released in 1998, but soon returned in 99 on another bank robbery and was housed at Leavenworth in 2003. I understand that he was stabbed in October of 2006 by the Blacks and was released in December 2011. There was a James Fagan, who is seen on this mugshot taken from the California Gang Task Force, had A number 39160. I show he was born in 1932 and had been a long-time convict and was also enrolled in the SPAN program at Cal Poly Pomona, which was a well-known program controlled by the Mexican Mafia and Aryan Brotherhood that supposedly was supposed to help convicts who were alcoholics and narcotics users. Same card notes that he was a very close associate to Eddie Bunker, as well as Steve Beckins, who I covered in the B last names. And it appears by this mugshot that he was housed at Tehachapi in 1972. There was Edward Felkins, who I believe was from Sacramento, who was at least an Aryan Brotherhood associate, and I show entered CDC in 1980 under C number 15435. Then show he was housed at San Quentin.
I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to read something that was sent to me today a while back. It was sent to me today, but was resent from a while back. So let me read it to you. It's talking about the GoFundMe. And it's about from Brooke. Let me see what her name is. Brooke Miller. She's the aunt of Jack D. Okay, it says the GoFundMe goal is $75,000 because so many people jumped in to help, and it had already reached its first goal. Maybe I will raise it to $1 million. Who cares? I don't understand why people have a problem with them getting any amount of money. The only thing I can think of is they're jealous. I'm guessing people just don't want to have enough to do in their lives that worry about families of murder victims getting money when you can barely wake up in the morning, even 2 years later, because you have to think about your beautiful daughter being choked, punched, and stabbed to the end of their life. In my opinion, you should be able to retire, never work again, and spend every day getting therapy and spend every day spending time with your remaining loved ones. No one is forced to donate anything. It's not like they're getting a victim's compensation from our tax dollars or anything. So again, why do you care? I'm very good friends with the Gonsalves family, and Kaylee was a big part of our family for many years. If any of the families have friends that want to start one of these, I could donate to all of them. Likely, those other families just don't want to face the backlash of all the hard-hearted people who sit around bashing murder victim families for a GoFundMe that their friends started. Ready, go, unleash the haters. Brooke Miller, the aunt of Jack D. So, this was posted on What the Obsessions page. And the part that I wanted to read to you is where she said, think about your beautiful daughter being choked, punched, and stabbed. Let that resonate for a second. How about now? Can y'all hear me better now? Y'all could hear me on the cell phone. So I don't know if you can hear me better now. Give me a number 1 if you can hear me good right now. Maybe it was my mic. Maybe I had unplugged it by accident. I want to show you some Aryan tattoos. Okay, let me stop sharing that page. Okay. So these are some Aryan tattoos that I found off of the good old Google. Okay. So as you can see, there are multiple different types. Lightning bolts. They have a shield there with the AB. They have the. I always thought that the pinnacle right here with the gangster disciples, but I could be wrong. They have the shamrock with the swastika. So let's go to another page here. Let's see if y'all can see this one. They also have, as you can see, the lightning bolts, the swastika. Different types. This obviously is from Texas, so it's a different variation. And I was also told that the Aryan Brotherhood uses a lot of axes to do their criminal activity. So I don't know how true that is. But see, as you can see, the axes, and that looks like a sledgehammer there. Saxton Knights. And obviously, this individual got his tattoos removed. So look at some of the tattoos that it said skinhead. So he got a lot of his tattoos removed, which is also a wonderful thing for people that have facial tattoos that they want to get removed. The Aryan Knights. They have a different. They have a bunch of different variations, and you can definitely tell if someone's affiliated. There's no doubt about it. You know what I mean? They don't necessarily all have facial tattoos, but you can definitely tell the people are affiliated. And the ones that I've ran across, they're really proud of their tattoos. You know, that's a Hell's Angel one, motorcycle club. This is a popular one. See how the Woody Woodpecker one with the cigar. There's another one. They sometimes call themselves the Wood, Peckerwood. Sometimes have this on them with the cross. Or they could look all kinds of different ways. You know what I mean? You just never know. But my thing is a lot of these individuals that you run across, they're tatted up, man. They have a lot of ink. That's why sometimes when these individuals that they show, obviously they're clothed, but you would be able to see a lot of the ink. You know, they're proud of it. See the shamrock with the swastika? See, this individual has a lot of ink. He's obviously from Texas. And doesn't mean that everybody had the same kind of ink. But if you're affiliated with a gang or a criminal organization, you're going to have some telltale signs to show your affiliation. See, there's a lot of 101%. Aryan circle. I mean, some of these people that are being called out for these crimes just don't look the type. Kind of like all the people that say Brian Koberger doesn't look like a killer. Well, if you're going to use that mentality about him, why couldn't you use the same mentality when it comes to criminal organizations? You know, there's a lot of people that don't look the type. Oh, I already took it down. Already took it down. Let me see if I can get back there. Which one? The Peckerwood one or the Aryan Circle or the Aryan Brotherhood? Okay, I got him. Okay. I found him. This individual right here is one of the escaped person that escaped the Idaho prison, and they killed 2 on the run. You see his ink? It's everywhere. Teardrops. This guy right here. So this is Ann Taylor's newest client. So if he's her newest client, you don't think that she's going to ask about any affiliations with him and any of the others? Supposedly in the Idaho area, you don't think she's doing some investigating about potential linking to any other people? What's that other dude's name? Oh, I got it. Now let's look at this guy who supposedly is one of the people that is tied to the crime that we all like to talk about. There he is. So, do you see ink on his arms, on his face, on his neck? Not saying that there couldn't be. But many of the people that I've seen that look like this look just like what it's talking about right here. Local meth trafficker. So trafficker could mean little amounts. Let's see if it gives you the amount. Wonder if it was under 400 grams or over. So you could visit a family member. Okay, officers allegedly found Farley with fentanyl pills. So was pills. It wasn't even meth. 52-year-old Tanya Rhodes was also arrested for meth trafficking. So I don't even know where Harvard, Idaho is, I guess. Or not even in Moscow or any of that. Latah County, wherever Harvard is. So he was arrested with pills. Suspected local meth trafficker. So how much meth was he trafficking? Yeah, this guy doesn't have any tattoos under his eyes at all. So this is Tyson Farley, the one that everybody keeps talking about. You see any ink? I wish we could see that photo. Okay, there we go. That's a bigger photo. Hate all these pop-ups. Well, there's a bigger photo right there. Let's see if we can blow this up a little bit. No, we really can't. I'm going to screenshot this and make a bigger one. Let me put that back up there. Let me take this one off here. I know my eyesight's not like it used to be, but do y'all see any ink on his arms? But of course, the naysayers will be that this is photoshopped to erase all his tattoos so you can't tell, because in the jail he's probably under protective custody because he's such a celebrity that he's being tied to all this crime, and this is Photoshop, just like Brian's pic was in the White Elantra with his dad. That wasn't even a photo, that was a video. How do you Photoshop a video? Yeah. I know, Nina, I know. Whatever sells, right? Whatever makes it sound good. Do you see anything that shows that he's a high level meth dealer? I don't. He's a meth user for sure. You can see that part of it. But as far as a high-level trafficker, no. No. High levels don't look like this guy. This guy looks like he's on a bench, been on a bench for like months. He looks all dehydrated. His skin's all oily. He doesn't look like a dealer, a trafficker. He's probably a low-level seller, if that. But what do I know? What do I know? Yeah, exactly. Well, what do I know? I'm going to finish this up tomorrow whenever I get better internet service. I don't know what's going on. I usually don't have problems. But I'm going to leave it with this. And I'm going to ask you a question with everything that I've presented tonight. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? If you can't, get yourself a bigger shovel. Because I put out there a lot of stuff tonight. And once again, I'm not trying to debunk anybody else's stuff. I'm just calling it how I see it. It's my opinion. I don't believe that the death of 4 people is entertainment. So the fact that I said that earlier was just being facetious. You know? Jeff has been working, so he's good. He's good. He should be back soon. But what I'm telling you is you need to ask better questions. If you believe that people are brilliant and geniuses and all this other stuff, that they are top-notch investigators, quote unquote, you got to ask better questions. Keep digging until they give you the answers and show you the proof. Because I believe that if I ask Gabe enough questions, I'm sure that I can get some answers. He even told me on our conversation, because I did ask him, I said, so what have you heard about the Idaho 4 stuff? He said, I never heard not one time released from the police because I have many friends in the Idaho, Moscow area. He said, I have friends in the state police. He said, not one time before the gag order was it uttered that this was a drug hit. So, why would he lie? What the payoff? So you have to ask yourself, if somebody's giving information so hardcore, what is the eventual payoff? Is it monetary? Is it fame? Is it attention? Is it to look smarter than everybody else? You got to ask yourself, what's the payoff? Because everybody on this planet has a payoff. So they do things for a certain reason. My payoff? I do it because I've been exposed to it for 20-something years. So that's my payoff. It's knowledge that I have that I want to pass on. That's my payoff. No other reason. But of course, I won't get the thousands of views on my lives because I'm not presenting anything that's going to get your little mind to going and your dopamine release and all this other stuff to make you feel good and have pleasure because you're actually a part of something that could be a fairy tale rather than you could easily debunk all these theories with 1 2-hour live. I believe Brian did this. If he didn't do it, he knows who did it. And he was a part of it. Somehow, some way. And he might be protecting somebody because he's fearful that if he does not take the rap for this, what could happen to his family? If you want to go down an avenue, why not go down that avenue? Because that would make more sense. Instead of trying to paint this man as an innocent bystander. How about that? But that's all I got to say about that. You guys have a wonderful night. I'm going to go work out. Maestro,